Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our huddle this morning. We once again have people joining us via Teams and in person. So if you have any questions, you can put them through the chat function or raise your hand and I can ask you along the way. So today is an opportunity to have a look at the SA Housing Operational Plan. As everyone is aware, we excitingly were awarded the SA Housing tender. So thank you to everyone that contributed to the tender and those that have supported me along the way. I very much appreciate it. So let's have a look at the operational plan that we've put together. Okay, so the start date for the SA Housing tender was the 1st of October. So that's the go live date. So we're nearly 2 weeks in. So the contract was approved and signed by the MedHealth legal team. And then at the end of September, when Heather was over from Perth, we went into the meeting with SA Housing Trust representatives, where we spoke about the tender and their expectations of us and the KPIs and who the key people are, and also introduction to some of the workflow processes. And then we did advertise for the SA Housing Clinical Advisor, the expression of interest, and that closed on the 25th, and the successful applicant was appointed, and that was Hans, as you will receive the email. So it's been a busy time, but an exciting time. Okay, so in terms of the operational plan, what I thought I'd do is I'll take you through some of the key objectives that are included in the plan, because they're in terms of, at the moment the contract's a 2-year contract with the option of another 2-year extension. But in order to get the 2-year extension, we need to meet the KPIs and the objectives. So that's why it's really important that everyone working in the SA Housing area, that everyone understands the objectives and the KPIs, because that's what we're being measured on. Okay, so let's start with the first objective. So the first objective is, on receipt of the 4 work orders in the same geographical area, an in-person assessment appointment will be booked with a public housing customer within 7 working days. So we normally call the people that we go and see clients in the SA Housing sector, they call them customers. So that's why the language is a little bit differently there. So just to recap that one again, so it means as the referrals come into us, that we book the initial assessment or the home assessment within 7 days. So that's something that's done by the client support officer, myself, and Hans will be involved in that as well. Did anyone have any questions about objective 1?
Yeah, who will be making the appointment bookings?
So we will continue with the client support officer making the bookings, so that therapists are not having to make client bookings like we do with all the other client areas that we work in, so NDIS and DVA. So that will continue to be a client support officer role. Okay, any other questions? All right, let's go on to objective 2. So objective 2 is the occupational therapy assessments to be conducted in the public housing customer's property at the allocated time and to be concluded within 1.5 hours of arrival. So what that means is that we have a KPI, which once you go through the induction process, you'll understand that we're trying to be there within 10 minutes. And most of us do that anyway, except for there's exceptional circumstances. So we So within 10 minutes of the appointed time, and that the assessment takes no longer than 1.5 hours. Did anyone have any questions about objective 2?
Yeah, how much time will we get for report writing?
Good question. So when we did the tender, we've quoted for a maximum of 10 hours for the initial assessment, for then report writing, and then if a second visit's required or clinical liaisons required. So for your simple assessments, you shouldn't need that 10 hours. That's for you more on your more complex end. But what we'll do is we will use the time tracker as we use with NDIS, and we'll keep monitoring that. No other questions? But yes, in terms of the tender, it is a maximum of 10 hours. All right, let's have a look at objective 3. So objective 3, so that is the home assessment report and diagrams to be written and submitted to the SA Housing Authority within 10 working days of the final home visit. So what that means is we put final home visit there just to allow for those times that there might be more than one visit required. But if there is only one visit required, that means that within 10 working days of that visit, the report and the diagrams, if required, are submitted back up onto the Connect portal for SA Housing Trust. And so, for example, if you did a visit on a Monday, you've got 2 weeks from that Monday to have the report finalised and submitted. So is there any questions about that objective?
Yeah, who will be submitting the reports?
So that will be a part of the role of the clinical advisor, so the SA housing advisor. So that will be Hans' role. So we could minimise the amount of people accessing the Connect portal. So I have access, the client support officers, Hans, and Emma does as well as team lead. And it also allows for that quality assurance role that Hans will be doing. Okay, so these are just some more information about the key performance indicators that we will have along the way. So the acknowledgement of the referral and triage within 24 hours. So I'll be doing the triaging as I normally do, client support officers acknowledging and uploading all the information onto PracSuite. So the next one's the client support officer contacts the client within 48 hours to schedule the assessment, ensuring the assessment is booked within 7 working days of receiving the work order. But there will be times where we will have to apply for an extension. So for example, if someone is unwell, can't have us there, or they're in hospital, well then we'll apply for an extension. The third KPI, as I spoke about in the objectives, is that we're going to arrive to the customer's property within 10 minutes of the allocated time and complete the assessment in 1.5 hours. Then the occupational therapist is submit the home assessment report to the SA Housing Clinical Advisor within 5 days of the final home visit appointment. And then Hans will be doing the initial quality assurance processing there. And then the final report and diagrams to be submitted by Hans to the SA Housing Authority within 10 working days of the final on-site appointment. No questions about those ones, but rest assured, as a part of this process, part of the induction to SA Housing Trust work, Hans will be completing the induction checklist. So I've written the induction checklist and then he'll be going through that with each person. So we're not going to throw you in on the deep end. It will be a very thorough induction process. Okay. So these were just some of the physical resources that we needed to ensure that we had as a part of the operational plan. The really good thing is all these things we already have. So we've already got our office space, our laptops, printer, mobile phones. So you'll continue to use your personal vehicle, so then you'll get your kilometre reimbursement. Measuring tapes, of course, we've got the stationery, and we've got the Australian building standards. Human resources, again, we haven't had to externally employ anyone at this point. We have appointed Hans to the clinical advisor role, but other than that, all other human resources have been already in place. And again, with the financial resources, there was no additional financial resources required at this time. So some of the contingency planning that we've developed plans for. So for example, you had appointments booked, but for, you're unwell or family reasons, you couldn't come to work that day. What are we going to do? Well, of course, the client support officer will call and reschedule. And if the client support officer is not available, well, then that will be myself, the team leaders, or Hans. And if the public housing customer is unable to make a booked home visit appointment, the client support officer would reschedule, and then so that we're still meeting our KPI targets, we would put in for an extension to the Housing Trust via the Connect portal. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. This is a new process for us all, so we do need to be patient and flexible and a little understanding as we go further through the process and establish those induction processes and workflow. And look, it's a really good opportunity if anyone wants to be involved in establishing those sort of activities, to let me know and to be involved. All right, thank you, everyone.